We're at the B20 Summit, and of course we've got a whole host of global voices for you. Now joining us for an exclusive interview and an interaction is Mr. Johnny Taylor, who is of course the President and CEO of SHRM. He's also looking at it very closely, areas of future skill development and mobility, and the future of work essentially at the B20. Thank you for your time and this interaction.
Thank you
and
for
I'd
having
like to
me.
begin by asking you, of course, the global workspace is changing completely. The landscape is changing altogether.
Yes.
Right? We have generative AI coming in.
Yes.
We have all the experts telling us, from India Inc. to global leaders, that look, it is time to reskill.
Yes.
So your thoughts on how we can really implement all of this and not just discuss it in terms of policy measures?
Yeah, the implementation is the key, right? We first have to start with great policy. Governments around the world, and I was very, very honored to be a part of meetings yesterday with your government here, have got to focus on workplace policy. It's not enough to say that people need to be reskilled if in fact we don't put in place a mechanism for them to be reskilled, which means access, affordability, and high quality skills achievement, right? Secondly though, we've got to be very intentional about an aging workforce around the globe. India is quite fortunate in that you are growing at 14 million people per year, I understand, and therefore you're going to be net a supplier of talent to the world. But it's not enough to have young people who don't have the talented skills that we need. So skills development, once again, reskilling is essential for mobility to work. The future of work has changed so significantly over the last 3 years, post-pandemic, right? That's been the big shift. How people work, where they work, for whom they will work, when they work, has all overnight been disrupted, and we're trying to figure it out.
All right, so we're still trying to figure that out.
That's right.
But I'd like to elaborate on the mechanism really.
Yes.
Because that is key, like you said.
Yes.
We need to have the mechanism in place to skill people.
Right.
So how do you think, what can be the first step globally that we must look at?
Globally, we've got to change the narrative about going to school, obtaining a degree, or gathering skills and keeping those for 20 or 30 years. World of work is changing and shifting so rapidly that many of the jobs that you know of today, 5 years from now, won't exist. So this idea of lifelong learning has become the new way that we have to think as governments, as industry, and as citizens, is you are constantly being expected to upskill and reskill. The second big takeaway in terms of actually taking this at play is we've got to get this into secondary education much earlier. We cannot wait until people get to college to teach them the skills so that they can come into the workplace. We've got to start much earlier, 10, 11, 12 years old, giving students the types of skills that the workforce is going to demand 5, 7 years later in their lives. But here's one that a lot of people aren't talking about: older workers. It's not enough just to educate and retrain and reskill 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds. We've now got to invest in 40-year-olds globally because the globe is getting older. Our country, the world, in fact, is graying and browning at once. And so the whole idea of what we must do to provide training for people outside of your prime 19 to 25 years old is critical. That is what governments are going to have to invest in,
right.
Is removing the obstacles so that
and
people
also
can
starting earlier, like you
starting
just said.
Early. You
so as I see it, investing in
and
14-year-olds to 40-year-olds, like you're
That's
saying,
precisely
that is really what one has to look at going forward. So that's as far as skilling is concerned.
Yes.
But of course, digital transformation
Yes.
and the digital divide is something that is being really talked about.
Yes.
So how do you think we can bridge the challenges coming in from the digital divide at large?
Well, let me tell you. So digital divide is a term of art that we use in the United States that really speaks to rural. So what we know is that in the secondary school system, depending upon where you live, you may not have access to the same type of high quality skills training and development. And so we've got to ensure that in the tier 3 and tier 4 cities in India, for example, and in rural markets in the United States and Japan and other parts of the world, that the same high quality skills development is available to the 14-year-old and the 40-year-old.
Absolutely. So that really is the crux of the matter, right?
Yes.
Training and skilling, as we see it, is really something that you're looking at very, very closely. And of course, you know, you're going to share with us your learnings as well. But what I also been reading a lot about is the digital transformation with AI coming into place, right?
Yes.
Hiring models are going to change altogether.
Oh.
So your message to the world on how can we look at that? Because AI is going to have an impact,
Yes.
right? Many India Inc. leaders over here talking about the need to regulate AI altogether.
Yes.
So your thoughts on that?
Well, regulation is coming. I just come from the United States where every one of our governmental leaders are trying to figure out how do we regulate something that we don't really understand. AI is essentially brand new to most of us. November 30th of 1992 is when the world, November 30th of 2022 is when the world was introduced to ChatGPT. Now they've been working on it for a long time, but all of a sudden people, normal people like you and I, understand that this poses an existential threat to our livelihoods. The jobs that many of us have held for years and were trained to do will go away. We know that the best estimates are that 300 million jobs globally will disappear over the next 5 to 7 years precisely because of AI. Now what we've got to do is ensure that the new 500 million jobs that will be created as a result of generative AI and machine learning and automation, that we have people skilled to do those new jobs. So right now the headline is AI is going to take your job. The headline should be, we're going to prepare you for the new job.
Absolutely. So that really is the crux of the matter, right? Just preparing for a new world altogether, a new workplace dynamic. Now, the other thing that's on the rise is, of course, the post-pandemic are hybrid work models.
Yes.
Right? Your thoughts on that? Because there are many industries, like you said, 5 years from now, we could be looking at a different world altogether. Certain industries altogether may have to completely reskill themselves. So your thought on the hybrid work model, something that's increasingly on the rise, and how do you see that going forward?
Hybrid work is here to stay. Anyone who tells you that we're going to swing back to 2019 ways of working is naive at best. The hybrid world is gone are the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday traditional work days that we've had. That being said, we've got a lot to learn about what do we mean by hybrid. Some people say 4 days in the office, 1 day remote, 3, 2, we don't know, and we're in the process of studying it. This is all new. 3 years ago, this was not the norm, and now it's become the norm. So employers, associations like SHRM are busy studying how productive are people who are working remotely? What classes of jobs can be done remotely? Some jobs actually can't be done remotely effectively, right? So we're now studying very closely, especially productivity, to determine the negative potential impacts of working remotely so that hybrid gives us the best of both worlds. Right. Employees get to have better work-life integration. Employers continue to see the productivity gains that they need in a thriving economy.
Absolutely, and work-life balance being, of course, the buzzword, not just in India, but globally at the moment.
Yes.
You know, one's mental well-being, physical health, all of those priorities now coming into force more than ever before. So going forward, how do you think we can have a framework in place really to understand this?
Well, so you've a couple of issues there. Let's talk mental health.
Right.
Pre-pandemic, we were obsessed with physical health. Stop smoking, gym memberships, everything. We were obsessed with people's physical health, and we didn't focus on their mental health. One thing the pandemic did for us is literally accelerated the focus to what is, as employers, do we have to do to ensure that we've taken care of the overall wellness of an employee. So that's not anywhere to go. We as employers are now working on benefits, not just healthcare benefits, but mental health care and wellness benefits. That's what we've done. Secondly, this whole idea of where are we going to work and how are we going to work. People are now pursuing gig economy jobs in ways that they had not some time ago. And so we're trying to figure out not so much labor planning, but work planning. How is work done? Will you have it in a formal sort of society and formal jobs, or will you have them in the informal jobs? Right. Will people be able to, many people want to be entrepreneurs now. They don't aspire to get a job and work for someone, they actually want to create jobs. So you've gotten to the real issue, which is the entire world of work. When we talk about the future of work, we actually don't know because it's changed so quickly right before our eyes.
Right, so rapid changes there really in the workplace scenario, the lines being blurred on well-being and of course employee wellness, but hopefully we'll have clarity. Thank you so much for this interaction and your time.